Welcome to Nitpicking Nerds. It's time for a tier list.
It's the most popular ramp cards in Commander.
I'm your host, Joe Cherries.
I'm your host, Beezy, and that makes us the Nitpicking Nerds, and we got another video. This time it's a tier list. If you want to support the videos and the tier lists and us, you can go to patreon.com. There's names scrolling on screen of awesome people right now.
How would you like to be one of the names that scrolls on screen?
Whoa.
I bet you would be extremely happy because...
I wish I could.
How could you? You could, Beezy, very easily.
I wish I could.
Oh,
if only.
If only you could. If you want to support us indirectly, you can use our TCG Player affiliate link in the description below. Go there. Buy the card you're going to buy anyway, but if you start with our link, you're supporting this channel.
I mean, that's got to be one of the best ways to do it. And there's a Dragon Shield link, EU or US, whatever you're doing, you can go to the link and buy the sleeves, the best sleeves in the multiverse.
Good sleeves.
The play mats and all the different stuff you need, and support the channel at the same time. You're spending no extra money, but we get money. It's basically just like a cheat.
Yes, and the sponsor of this channel, Moxfield.com. There's an ad in this video, and you will never, you better predict right now.
Yeah.
Because it'd be cheating if you predicted any later.
I think even if you scroll ahead 5 minutes and see what we will show you, you won't be able to predict it.
Probably not.
And happy birthday to everyone's birthday is today, but we're going over green, mostly green ramp spells. It's just kind of like the most popular ramp spells according to EDH Rec. So if you don't see something on here, it's because it wasn't on EDH Rec high enough. We're going to tell you what we think of them, how strong they are, and you're going to see in relation to each other, because we always talk about them individually a lot, but now you're going to see where they stack up against each other.
I'm going to start. I want to say something right now. Something that's going to make a huge difference for this whole list is it's very important if something is green or something is not green. The ability to go in green decks and the ability to go outside of green decks makes a huge difference, and it'll come up many times going forward. All right, it's time to do our famous, world famous actually, Shrinky Dink move. So let's do it. And we're tiny and in
So
the
small.
corner. Now, Beezy, get the computer, the Nitpicking Nerds computer.
Signature computer of the Nitpicking Nerds, effortlessly brought in, so smooth. Let's get to the first one. It's Arcane Signet, 2 mana artifact, taps for a color of your commander. Basically, should have never been made. It was a design mistake because it's really good.
It can just go in any deck. It comes in untapped, immediately makes mana, makes up the mana right away. I mean, its weaknesses, it's not actually, I don't put this in many green decks because it's not actually putting a land in play, but rather we're putting in, an artifact that is more easily destroyed. Still amazing. Any non-green deck, I'm slamming this in. It's one of the first rocks I'm throwing in.
It's really just like an auto-include, and it almost doesn't even matter what your power level's at. Maybe CDH strays away from this a little bit, but anything else, I'm just playing this in a non-green deck, right?
Yeah.
Automatically.
This one's an S.
Yeah, it's gotta be.
It's hard not to be. It's an auto-include. And even there are green decks that play this. Like, this card is one of the few that kind of transcends that, where it's like, you don't want to play much artifact ramp in your
green
decks, but this can get there sometimes.
Some green decks have artifact synergy. Let's go to Birds of Paradise, which is a stand-in for every 1 mana, specifically 1 mana dork. So your Boreal Druid, Llanowar Elves, Deathray Shaman, all those friends are here. 1 mana dorks are really good. So this is kind of like, where would we put any one of those? Not all of them, any one of them.
Yeah, but I mean, every one of them is amazing. I mean, Noble Hierarch, Ignoble Hierarch.
Any of them.
There's so many 1 mana dorks, and a 1 mana card that taps for 1 mana afterward is, well, very, very strong. This is easy S tier as well.
Yep.
It's just a staple. This is not just like a staple. It's like any deck. Any deck that can play Birds of Paradise almost always wants to be playing Birds of Paradise.
CDH included.
Yes, they're incredibly strong.
Yeah, I was I think talking to somebody, I don't remember who it is, sorry person, but we were talking like, well, what would CDH look like if they banned all the fast mana? And they're like, well, green decks would just have the best ramp. But not even close.
Yeah, very much so.
Right, which is interesting. And let's go to Bloom Tender. 2 mana 1/1 taps for all the colors of pips you have in play. So if you got a Wooburg creature, it makes Wooburg.
Yes, I mean, it's not about pips though, because if you have like
Colors of
a
permanents.
Zombie from Field of the Dead in your non-black deck, boom,
It's an extra mana, baby.
It is tapping for an extra mana. This card is good, not great. Dorks fall off really hard as you go to 2 mana. Now that being said, this card is very strong.
Isn't this the best 2 mana dork?
It is the best 2 mana dork.
At least in a vacuum, right? Like maybe Gyre Sage could do more eventually, but this is kind of just like, you're not going to get more mana for a 2 mana dork than this.
I think the closest thing to this is Devoted Druid. Devoted Druid might be better because of its combo potential.
That's true.
Doesn't make it on this list because it wasn't played enough. I think it's an A.
I think it's an A too.
I don't think it's quite an S tier. It's not an auto-include by any means like your Birds of Paradise, like your Arcane Signet, but still, just a great card that I'm going to throw in my 3-4 color decks because it's going to tap for a lot a lot of mana.
Yeah, people like to frown on mana dorks, and they always say like, well, they're going to get swept up in a board wipe. It's like, but all these cards that you're powering out faster and getting card advantage from wouldn't have happened earlier. If you have 7 cards in a hand after a board wipe, what's the difference? I mean, versus like I have 7 cards in hand, but I didn't develop my board at all, or I didn't ramp at all, or I didn't get any other creatures in play and pressure people.
But also something that's to consider is like, yes, that's true. And like there is downsides to mana dorks. They will get swept away. They do have big downsides at times. But on the same note, going into the later game, if you have out anything that draws a card, Beast Whisper, Guardian Project,
Great Henge.
the Great Henge, any one of these cards is on the battlefield, suddenly your mana dorks that would be useless going into the late game now are producing cards.
Right, whereas like Rampant Growth, pretty much you're only ever going to get Rampant Growth, and we'll get to that eventually. Commander Sphere is the next card. 3 mana artifact, taps for a mana of any color for your commander identity, just like Arcane Signet, for cost 3, and you can sack it to draw a card.
I've reached the point that unless I have synergy with this card, that I can really repeat and use over and over again, I'm off it. I'm really not playing it.
I love this card. I think it's so cool, but I just don't think it's that good.
I think it's a D. I don't think it's unplayable by any stretch of the imagination, but when I'm looking at this card, I go, I better have some synergy. Maybe I'm thinking like Glissa, where I can sack it, return it, and then play it again.
Cost reducers, maybe the fact that this costs 3, it could be very interesting. I was looking at that Commander Liara Porter, and it's like, well, if you're casting a 3-drop from exile and it costs 3 less, same thing as a Signet, but this has more text on it. So maybe something like that. Yeah, you gotta work for it.
Oh, yeah, I just think this is not unplayable by any stretch of the imagination, but you need synergy.
Yes, very specific. Is that the tagline for Commander Sphere?
Yeah.
Not unplayable by any stretch of the imagination?
Yeah, it's definitely not unplayable.
By any stretch of the imagination?
by any stretch of the imagination.
All right, Cultivate, and also Kodama's Reach, cards that are the exact same card we just put together. Why would we waste your time with that twice? It's go get a land, put it in play tapped, and go get a basic and put it in your hand.
Now you get to actually hear, like we talk about not liking this card that much, but I think these cards are C's. They're average. They're not bad at all. And actually, I think they're close to B. I like these cards, and I will put them in. Usually, what my big issue is when we go in green. Here's what ends up happening. If usually there's infinite mana dorks. If you're a mana dork deck, your ramp is filled out really quick. There's a bunch of ramp we're gonna get to on here that just kind of outclass it, and they're like no doubt. Cultivate, another card that's good. It is a good magic card.
It's not bad.
And when we had less options, it was definitely, holding its own weight. It's just kind of fallen down. I think it's either bottom of B, which I think we can move up to bottom of B. I think that's fair because
I kind of like top of C. Either way, as this list goes on, you'll really see like, hey, it's not a bad card, but we're not judging it in a vacuum. We have to choose 8 of these or 10 of these or 12 of these and play them. And I think we're going to see a lot of things above Cultivate after this is over.
I think we should put it in B. I really do.
Right, but we're going to stick it at bottom of B.
It is bottom of B, yes. But I think it is more in the B range. This is just, I play this when I don't want to be playing as many mana dorks or I want to kind of switch up my ramp package. It's never my go-to.
Also, just because bottom of B and top of C, it will have the exact same number of cards above and below it either way.
Yes.
So we can go on to a split one. This is Growth Spiral, one of the most played ones by a lot, actually. And Explore, they both draw a card, and then you can put a land from your hand into the battlefield or play an additional land. Slightly different cards.
Yes. I actually think these are, on average, worse than the Cultivates.
I was going to put them in like the top of D or something, or maybe C. I think can never find room for these. They're not always ramp, honestly. And they just are such filler, especially if you're in a creature deck. You're not going to play a spell.
Yeah, this is top of D, bottom of C. This is really about your land decks, right? Like, when you want extra land drops, when that is actually super beneficial to you, these cards tend to be very good in those decks. But otherwise, yeah, they're not very good. I think top of D is a good spot for them. It's not, these cards aren't unplayable.
They're just playable, but they don't make it a lot of time.
But we're talking about ramp there's a lot of ramp. A lot of good ramp, so you're just not going to end up putting Explore in your deck very often.
It's true. Faeburrow Elder, quite a bit different from Bloom Tender just because it's more colors and it's harder to cast and it's bigger. It's a 0/0 +1/+1 for each color among permanents. It's green and white, so that's at least 2. And then it does the same thing as Bloom Tender, taps for that much mana. It's definitely a step worse because 2 to 3 for a mana dork is a big change, mana-wise.
I mean, yeah, it's like 1 to 2, right? It's like
it's huge.
It's just as big of a difference. This one I think is down in D tier. I'm not looking to play this card. Like I'll put it in the deck if like maybe I'm on some restriction, maybe it has a lot of synergy, but it's not that interesting. Yes, it can tap for a lot of mana. It can, but 3 mana dorks. I'm looking to be ramp 1 mana ramp, 2 mana ramp. That's the like That's a sweet spot. That's where you want to be. So when we're really going up into like 3 mana, we got to do something really good. And this not tapping for mana right away. If this thing had haste, I'd be interested.
Well, geez, yeah, then it'd be free. This for me says a lot about the difference between this and Bloom Tender, because Faeburrow Elder, I'm basically just going to play in 5 color decks, and it's going to be, hey, it's pretty good. It's okay. But Bloom Tender, as soon as it taps for like 2 mana, I'm like, this is amazing. This is great.
Yeah.
And just the speed of it is so much different.
It makes up for itself right away at that point. Yeah, it's Bloom Tender a lot better than Faeburrow. Like, there's a huge difference. I know they read similar. Don't sleep on Bloom Tender. It's much better.
Yes. Farseek. You go find a island, plains, mountain, or swamp and put it in the battlefield tapped. So obviously you're going to get fixing, you're going to get shock lands or dual lands or whatever you want. You can't play it at mono green, though.
Yeah, I think this is an easy B, top of B.
Top of B, okay.
Yeah, this is good.
Well, it's certainly above Cultivate.
I mean,
because we like the 2 mana, 1 ramps above the Cultivates.
Yes, I am a fan of them over them. I like getting this. I like that it's fixing. You can basically get any dual land. I mean, you literally can get any dual land in your deck. You can get triomes. Anything with types on it, you can just go get out of your deck. Super happy about this. You almost never get a basic because it's already entering tap. So it's like, let's get a shock, let's get a duel, let's get something.
Even a snowland.
A snowland, like a snow duel. Yeah. So get any one of those things. This is like a little bit down my list of like where I'm looking for spell ramp, but it usually ends up in my decks when I'm building green decks.
Yeah, I've played Farseek a few times. Felwar Stone, 2 mana rock, but it makes mana that is produced by your opponent's lands, which is basically Wooburg. You're guaranteed at least 3 colors, whatever they are.
All right. This is the key, what I was talking about earlier, where we're going to see green ramp has a different standard than non-green ramp, because this is an A. This is really good. This almost always is tapping for your colors. It's fixing. I'll put it in a monocolor deck because it doesn't. Most of the time, it'll tap for my color, and then when it doesn't tap for my color, it's a colorless rock like a Mind Stone that we're going to get to later. Which is passable. It's not great, but most of the time, it's still going to be a colored rock. This is these untapped 2 mana rocks that immediately produce a color automatically are very strong outside of green.
Yes, and the green decks don't really need them because, especially with the mana dorks, there's so many of them. It's not like, oh, Birds of Paradise, then Arcane Signet. It's like, no, Birds, Land of War Elves, blah, 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 88 of them. Then it's like, I'm still just not going to go for that. Golgari Signet is the representative and talisman of resilience for green signets and green talismans only, because there's such a huge difference.
Yes, it is huge. So green signets versus non-green signets is like astronomically far apart. I
mean, how often do we play green signets? Is it 0? Because I don't think I've ever put one in a deck.
It's rare. I'm only ever putting the example comes back again.
Glissa, right?
Glissa is an example of like a deck that actually does want to play these. It's rare. They exist, and they're not terrible. They're just not as good as all the spell-based ramp that we have, unless we have artifact synergies. I got these in bottom of D. I don't think they're poop. I don't think they're unplayable.
Is that what we would say poop is?
What'd you say?
Would we say poop is unplayable?
I'd say poop is like I never think I want to put it in a deck, and I'm not there with this.
It's tough because I never want to put it in a deck unless I have some kind of really good reason. That's like obvious.
Okay, we can put it in poop tier.
I think we can just stick them in poop.
Sure.
We're really never going to play these. A lot of the time, the option becomes, hey, do I want to put an artifact in play that taps for mana, or just put a land in play, which is like 10 times safer in a game of Commander?
Yeah, exactly. Unless you have synergies, avoid these 100% of the time.
Yeah, like, in your creature decks, you got like a blink deck. Well, just you have no reason to ever go to Golgari Signet because there's so many creatures that enter the battlefield and go find a land. It's just, you never have to do it. It's always going to just be like sticking out like a sore thumb, not synergizing at all. But let's go to Harrow, 2 and a green, instant sack a land, get 2 basics untapped.
I was wondering if we're ever going to get a C, and this fits in C.
Hey, look,
so perfect.
a C.
It's not what I'm super interested in playing, but really good in your landfall decks, especially when you're like a 2-color landfall deck. Like that's going to, or 2 or 1 color, like super strong in those decks. You're just going to, get 2 landfall triggers. They come in untapped. You're paying back the mana. The big risk on this card is it's as an additional cost, meaning that
hosed.
Counter spells can absolutely hose you and put you in a terrible spot, and you won't get the mana. It can be really rough, but most of the time you don't get blown out. This is also an instant.
Yes.
So it feels really good when you get to do it. It's getting the mana back is like, oh, we'll talk about that with some of these other cards coming up. When you get the mana back right away, it feels so good.
Yeah, it only costs you 1 the same turn, but you're only ramping 1 and it's 3 mana. So like in general, Cultivate gives you more lands in this because you have 1 in your hand. But then this is like kind of a medium card, maybe mediocre card, but it just rises so much when you're doing some of these strategies like Landfall. And I would say more so very much more common than like Golgari Signet being good.
Yeah, exactly. It's I tend Harrow's not one I go to often, just like I don't go to Cultivate often. But in a landfall strategy, I'm gonna go to it. And one thing that falls off about Harrow for me going into, because like if I'm playing like say 4-color Omnath which is a landfall strategy,
Basic count.
I'm not gonna have enough basics in that deck to really want to play Harrow.
You're playing what, like 4?
I was playing 4. Yes.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mana Crypt. Is this a good magic card? It's 0 mana, makes 2 mana. Enters untapped, and then at your upkeep, maybe you take 3 damage. I think it's pretty good. It seems good to me.
This is the easiest S+ of my life.
It might be just the single best card in the entire format. It's hard to say, but it's up there.
It's up there. It's competing for the best card in the format. There's not much to say about it. Obviously, Mana Crypt is just an over-the-top, ridiculously strong magic card.
It ruins games because it's so strong. I mean, if it was $1, it would be an auto-include right up there with Soul Ring, which we'll get to. It's just absolutely obnoxiously powerful.
Yes.
It's great. I mean, it'll do work. It'll power out your commander, bury your opponents. You just take such a huge lead, especially if you can fire off Mana Crypt and then draw some cards. Like, what are you going to do now? I already got the advantage.
Yes. Next, Mind Stone. Good card.
Taps for 1, sacks to draw a card.
Yeah, this one's pretty simple. I think this one's in B tier, though. It doesn't mana fix, which is definitely a downside to this card. That's like the weakest part of it. You're not going to want it in 3 or 4 color decks, so it's only going to really make it in the 1 and 2 color decks, and that's non-green, so it has a less home. I was thinking B tier for me.
Oh, you're thinking B. I think I put it 1 too high. Someone just got, Mindstone fans just got totally bait and switched.
Yeah, no, I think B is fair. I think it is distinctively worse than Fellwire Stone, where tapping for colorless is a big downside. Yes, late game it kind of it cycles, but that's fallback. Like,
but it is nice to have.
It is nice to have, it's like a fallback. You didn't put the mana rock in the draw, but you'll take it when it gets to late game.
When you don't need lands and you need action, it's there for you. Mirari's Wake. This is technically a ramp spell, I guess. It's in the top EDH rec cards, and it makes mana. So I'm going to count it. Your creatures get +1/+1, and your lands make an additional mana. So this thing is like a big investment. Got to pay 5. Even if you untap the next turn, your lands produce double, but you wasted 5 on this, so you're really breaking even, and then the next land you play will be +1.
Yeah,
and if you play this late game, you're up a bunch of mana.
Usually go up the next turn by
you're up by like 1.
By
but then
1 minute.
If you play it later, you're up a bunch.
Yeah, you want to play this in the later game. I think his card's a C. I think it's a passable card. I never look at it and go, oh man, Mirari's Wake, that's bad. No, it's always good, and it kind of gets going. You want to play it later game. It's slow. This is not a fast magic card. This isn't getting you out of the gates quick. And you're ramping at 5, which is not
where you want to start.
Not where you want to start ramping. So hopefully you ramped into this, which will make it a little bit better.
Then we already ramped, so I don't know.
It's not a bad card.
No, it's been fine. I don't ever really play this card, but I do have it in a deck that's like way lower power. It's very janky, and it does work. And it if you untap with it, you're like, it's pretty sweet.
Yes, it feels really good to untap with double mana the next turn.
And if you don't untap with it, you feel like you fell into a black hole of sadness.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of big splashy spells, right? Yeah. Whenever you cast your 6/7 drop without an ETB,
you just get no impact at all.
Oh, it feels so bad.
All right. Moxfield.com is actually not a magic card, but you put your magic cards onto it because it's a digital deck building website that you should probably be using, whether or not they're sponsored by this channel. But this channel is sponsored by them, so you should probably go there. We got a link probably in the description. You can go check out our decks there and just use the most efficient deck building tool ever.
Yes, Nitpicking Nerds build every single one of the decks there. Go there, check out every deck the Nitpicking Nerds has. Go check out all the decks that Dylan, the Shaper from Play to Win, has.
Dylan to Win.
Dylan to Win. Is that what it is? I think
that's his name. Is
I
Dylan
thought it was
to
like
Win
the Shaper.
I think his name's Dylan to Win on Moxfield.
Maybe I'm wrong. Dylan, tell us what your name is.
Sure. In the comments, Dylan, tell us what your name is. But Moxfield, easy S tier. I think it goes above Mana Crypt. Because it doesn't ruin games. It saves games.
It makes your decks that much better.
It lets you beat Mana Crypt. It lets you build into your decks to beat Mana Crypt. Nature's Lore. 1 and a green, sorcery. Go find a forest, just any forest, the type forest, and put it into play. Doesn't specify tapped, so if you get a shock land, you can pay 2 life, have it untapped. Dual lands always come in untapped. Basic forest will come in untapped. This is fantastic. This is like the gold standard of 2 mana sorcery speed ramp.
Yep, and also its buddy, 3 visits, is sitting here with it.
They're the same card, yeah.
They're the same as that card. It literally reads the exact same.
Hey?
These are...
How close to S do these get?
These are top of A, bottom of S. I mean...
I like bottom of S. I almost want to do this.
I kind of like... I like them in S tier too because I have them... I think they are better. They're better than Arcane Signet.
They are number 1 and number 2 put a land into play ramp every single time, unless I'm like all creatures. But obviously that's a different.
You start with your mana. If you want, you put in a number of mana dorks, then these two, right? These are the next ones.
Like if you told me pick 3 ramp spells to play, it's this and the other one, and then another one we'll get to.
Yes, exactly. What is next, BC?
Is it Signet and Talisman of Creativity, standing in for the non-green Signets, aka the ones we play all the time.
Yes, this is easy. These are A's. They're really good. They're right there with Fellowwire Stone.
Just absolute staples.
They're fixing. They're super staples. I mean, you're going to put them in all your non-green decks, right? Like, they're going in all those.
Basically just all of them. I mean, this type of 2-mana ramp is what's kind of pushing out the 3-mana rocks to where us and a lot of other people don't turn to them as much. More niche strategies where they can synergize because we'll just get all the stuff at 2, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm just not interested in playing 3-mana ramp when I have a ton of 2-mana ramp. I mean, Signets have literally been staples of Commander for as long as I can remember Commander.
As long as Commander's been out within, since Ravnica came out.
I feel like Talismans were slept on for a while, and then they reprinted like the new half.
They just weren't available, I think is what it was.
Yeah, and now you see them all the time because
the stupid blue-white one was like $20.
It's silly. Super silly.
All right, Rampant Growth, classic, 1 green, basic land, tapped. This is the most bread and butter card. I feel like it's above Cultivate, but it's probably in the B range, right?
No, see, I kind of it's close. It's like with Cultivate. It's like on the same page. Like,
I think if I had to pick one though, I'd rather just still have 2 mana, put 1 into play. Do you want to just put it here?
Put it below.
Below, wow.
It's so close.
It's close, I guess.
I mean, this is like what I know. This is like there is a big difference here. I know that 2 mana, put 1 to 1 to hand. They both have their applications. This is like my bottom for 2 mana ramp. Like, I'm not really looking to play much of this card, but I will play it once in a while. It's fine and it's passable. Cultivate 2. I mean, you could put it above or below. It's really close.
All right, look away.
I mean, I'm fine with either.
Look away, and nothing happened.
I saw it.
You didn't see anything.
Just saw it happen.
All right, so Rampant Growth, yeah, I would turn to Rampant Growth before Cultivate. Personally, Sakura-tribe is next, and I would turn to that all the time because he's a 2 mana 1/1. Sack, doesn't need to tap. Just sack, go find a basic land, put it into play, tapped. Reads like Rampant Growth a lot of the time.
It is Rampant Growth.
And then it's just so much better.
I mean, if you have any synergy, all the little tiny synergies. We've talked about this in the past, like a long time ago when we first started this channel, how putting something on a creature improves a card tenfold, and this just goes to show it because
especially when the rate is the same.
We're talking about Sakura-tribe versus Rampant Growth. It's recurable. It is, I mean, all your synergies, your death triggers.
We just said Beast Whisperer, Guardian Project, Great Henge.
Yeah, and then card. Add in your Grim Horror specs and your Midnight Reapers.
Carador, Marin. We just go on forever.
It's just, there's a million little tiny things that push this from a B all the way up to an A. This card is probably like top of A.
I mean, I play it way more than I play Bloom Tender, that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, any synergy, any little synergy. You got a Skull Clamp in your deck, that's probably enough for a reason to play this.
Sometimes it'll be 2 cards.
It's definitely enough for a reason. And there's
Rampant Growth is nothing. It's not going to ever give you any more than a Rampant Growth.
Even the little thing of just chump blocking. The free chump block is a really strong thing.
Gain 3 life. Okay.
It's so good. Like it's hard that it reads the exact same as Rampant Growth, but it's about 10 times better.
Like 7 steps better, or at least 1 full tier better. Skyshroud Claim is the other one we were talking about, our go-to trifecta of Nature's Lore 3 visits, and now Skyshroud Claim. It's 4 mana, and you go get 2 forests. It's just basically 2 Nature's Claims together.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. And you can get them tapped, you can get them untapped. You do it.
So good. This thing only costs 2 mana. That's what you're paying is 2 mana up front.
I mean, it's a sweet spot. Yeah, this is like a good card that we play a lot. I still think it's in the B tier. It's like
top of B though.
It's hanging out with it's hanging out there. It's like top of B. It's a really good card, and we play it in a lot of decks because you can put the forest in untapped. Which, oh my goodness, is that a big difference?
Man, explosive veggies, hang your head in shame because Skyshroud Claim does it so much better.
It's funny because like veggies, not even close to a bad card. But there's so many better options, right?
It's buried under this dog pile of strictly better cards.
It's so many of them. Literally infinite.
Ooh, this next one you might not have heard of. It's in a lot of precons, though. Soul Ring. It's 1, and it makes 2 mana, which it turns out is good. And this card, we always say on the channel, has ruined more Commander games than anyone is willing to admit and anyone could possibly imagine.
I always like to say it's ruined more Commander games than any other card in the format.
Yes.
I think it's not even close.
But it's not like Soul Ring is stupid, so we're not going to grade it high. It's still an S. This is a power tier list. This card's amazing. You should play it in every single one of your decks if you care about ramping efficiently and powering out stuff because you can't beat this rate except for Mana Crypt.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, easy S tier. I mean,
not much to say.
Soul Ring is good.
What do you want us to say about it? What about Sad Robot?
Said Robot is interesting. I was actually just looking at this and thinking, where do I want to put this? It's a card I play pretty often in non-green decks. It's got a lot of synergy. It's always a 2-for-1.
It's a little slow. It's not the fastest card in the world.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I'm playing it in my non-green decks pretty often.
To me, I just thought we would just put it like right here, like a C card.
Yeah, top of
that's
C.
kind of just where we put it at.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Top of C is a good grade for it. It's totally passable. It's not bad.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good. It's just not like in your fast decks. You just never want to touch this.
Oh man, it used to be like it's definitely.
Everyone, it was a staple. Like you had to play it.
It definitely used to be a staple before, man.
Mm-hmm. I think I remember it in green decks too.
It was in every deck.
Yeah, it was in every deck. Sad Robot, you've fallen down quite a bit. Thought Vessel, 2 mana, taps for colorless, but you have no max hand size, which is a nice little cherry on top. Feels similar to Mind Stone, where like, hey, sometimes you get a card out of it.
Yeah, I think it's right next to Mind Stone, right? Like it doesn't really go much place else. I tend to avoid this a little bit more unless I have synergies with it. I want to make sure if I can reliably go over a hand size, okay, it's really, really good in that case. Like,
yeah, but if you're a graveyard deck, you never want this.
You never want it in your graveyard decks. If you want to be discarding cards in your graveyard is good for you, don't put Thought Vessel in. It's just right next to Mind Stone. Like they're both 1 mana they're both 2 mana rocks that tap for a colorless.
Yep. If you repeatedly go over 7 cards and you have Thought Vessel in play, you're drawing cards. That's card advantage.
Yeah,
for no mana.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, Wayfarer's Bauble, the YouTube account Wayfarer's Bauble will be thrilled to know this was the very last entry. It was the 25th most played ramp spell.
Yeah, Wayfarer's Bubble's good. I mean, it's definitely good, and it's one of the first ramp spells I go to for my non-green deck.
It's a solid little dude. Putting lands in play permanently is nice.
I mean, it's a bad rate, right? Like we can start here.
Sort of.
3 mana to put 1 land in play is a bad rate. We know that. I mean,
like par for like your throwaway ramp spells that they print all the time.
Yeah, but it's bad. So we wouldn't be looking to play this usually, but it's always non-green. This is that different standard. It's like, is this top of B, bottom of A?
I'd probably stick it here. Maybe here.
I would, yeah, I like that because I definitely have it above the Mind Stones. I have it above the.
It's tough because they all make the same deck anyway. Like, I'm never in a position where I have to choose between Mind Stone and that. But the first one I go to is pretty much Wayfarer's Bauble.
I mean, every single time.
Yeah, just like the fact that you can diversify your ramp, and this is only technically an artifact. It's really like it puts a land in a place, so it's going to be safe. Nice to have, and sometimes you can recur it.
I mean, yeah. I was gonna say another thing that people don't think about is you can recur it. Like a Sun Titan is gonna be able to get this back, which
every once in a while.
Yeah, which is gonna be stronger than having something like a Thought Vessel.
Speaking of strong cards that we've pretty much historically always been high on these, and now we're just super jamming them all the time. Utopia Sprawl and Wild Growth. You enchant a land or a forest, and it makes an additional mana of a color you choose or a green, and they're amazing. So fantastic. They're like mana dorks, but when you don't care about having creatures, they have haste and they just like never go away.
They don't die. They don't get swept up on board wipes.
Bane of Progress or like Farewell.
The fact that they're mana equal on the turn you play them is so strong, meaning you're up mana on the next turn. I've just come around and I thought these were good. Now I think these are just great.
Fantastic. Like S, like here?
Yes,
right
next
there.
to Mana Dorks. Like super duper good. I mean, they're incredibly strong ramp. If you haven't tried them, you haven't put them in decks, do it because they're really, really good.
Enchantress decks, I mean, they're like the best thing you could possibly be doing in those decks. Any sort of devotion matters. They are an extra pip. They do a lot of stuff. Not as much as creatures, not as much synergy, but their ramp is like, it really just feels like your ramp and growth thing for 1 mana.
They do ramp better than dorks, though obviously dorks have more synergy.
Right, there might be more upside to dorks, but these things, you've got to play these cards. They're so good. I mean, very distinctly different from like Fertile Ground. That's an overgrowth, different territory. Maybe decks want those, but not all of them. Wild Growth is like, no, maybe all of them.
It's 1 mana ramp.
Right.
1 mana ramp is good.
When they ban Soul Ring and Mana Crypt, you'll be super excited to have
everything
these.
that costs 1 mana, except for Wayfarer's Bubble, which actually costs 3, is up in S tier if you haven't noticed.
Yes, and the last one is Wood Elves. It's 2 and green for 1/1. ETB, find a forest, but it's Nature's Claims or it's Nature's Lore style. It's going in play. You can fix. You can get dual lands. Amazing. This is my go-to for like this and Tribe Elder are my go-to for creature decks. First 2 I play every time.
This one's hanging out with Skyshroud Claim for me, where it's like it's good. It's at the top of B. It's a great.
Think
card.
so?
Yeah, in the same kind of class for me, where it's like. If I don't care about the creature, Skyshroud Claim. If I care about the creature, Wood Elves is the first go-to.
It really is like I'm not playing both of those. I'm going to pick one.
Sometimes I play both of them. It depends on the deck.
If you're like jamming forests, then yeah.
Yeah, also on a budget. Both of those are good budget cards.
True. So that's the list. I think it came out really good. And I will point out again, Cultivate kind of got buried. It's the 8th lowest tier.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I would expect. I mean, Cultivate is a good card. A good Magic card, good in Commander. It gets buried by the fact that there's so many good ramp spells in Commander.
Yeah, there's just a million. I mean, people always say, I think people just get so like defensive and they're like, well, you hate Cultivate. It's like, no, I just never play it.
Well,
it could be a good card that I never play.
Let's actually look at this list. So let's Birds of Paradise. So I'm just gonna say there's 7 dorks. That is generously low. I think there is 7 mana dorks.
I think you can exclude like Noble Hierarch and stuff.
I'm not even excluding anything. 7 mana dorks, and then we have Utopia Sprawl, and then we have Wild Growth.
3 visits.
3 visits.
Nature's Lore.
Sakura-tribe Elder. Wood Elves. Skyshroud Claim, Bloom Tender, Rampant Growth, and Farseek. I'm up to 17 ramp spells
How many do you need?
before I got to Cultivate. And it's not that Cultivate's a bad Magic card, it's that we don't need to go to it that often.
It's a good card that we never play.
Yes, let's get let's not get big. Check out some of our other tier lists. We've done a ton of these. What's your favorite one we've ever done?
I would say my favorite tier list we've ever done is probably the first ever tribes tier list. We ranked all the tribes and people loved it. So if you want to know where your favorite tribe stands with us, check it out.
Sounds green. I mean, I would point to it, but it's down there.
It's down over here. So bye.
Bye. Peace out, Tribe Scouts.